Hey there, Simian Squad. Welcome back to Reddit Wednesdays here on Mr. Sean Productions. I'm your host, Mr. Sean. Today, we're diving into the Reddit world of r/neckbeardstories. I have 4 tales of beardiness for you, and I really hope you enjoy them. I read Reddit stories every Wednesday, and if you have a story you would like to share, be sure to check out my subreddit r/Mr. Sean Reads Stories to post your story. And with that being said, let's get into the first one. Our first story today is called Coworker Asks Me Out Right After I Turn 18. For context, I, 19 female, worked at a recently bought out southern grocery chain from ages 17 to 18 as a cashier. I turned in my 2 weeks after I wasn't transferred to another department, which is important later. The neckbeard, late 20s male, was a coworker working in the produce department. I was really shy when I worked at this store, and my friends have told me that my general appearance, borderline emo, baby face, and commonly mistaken for someone much younger, is literal bait for creeps. I low-key agree, as I have a lot of these stories, though this one is the worst. I'm not as shy now, as the job eventually taught me not to care and be myself, I guess, lol. I was training for bakery, on and off, which shared a prep room with produce. Now, let's begin. Characters: me, as myself, cashier at grocery store. P, neckbeard, typical anime nerd / coworker. Now for the main story. I turned in my 2 weeks, and on my next to last cashier shift, about a month or so after I turned 18, I was approached by P as I was sweeping the front. He pulls me aside and asks me out, in the classic catch dinner request. I had severe anxiety / a mild eating disorder at the time, and I remember the moment he asked me, I felt like throwing up, lol. Anyway, I thought he meant as friends, since he was almost 30 and I had just turned 18, right? He had known me since I had turned 17, right?
Yeah, because I wasn't sure if you had a boyfriend.
Fuck. At the time, I was asexual. So I was like, no. And he kinda gets excited, until I tell him, no, I don't want to go out with you, in the nicest, shyest way possible.
Is it because I'm fat?
Huh? That's your first thought? Not that I'm 10 years younger, and that I'm barely legal? Now, P was an overweight man, with a high-pitched voice and a balding head, and I was way smaller than him. I mean, yeah, I guess. Of course, I didn't say that. I was scared to death and about to keel over. No, I'm just not ready. So he walks away with the idea that one day I may date him, which I let him. My mom picked me up that day and I told her. Then I mentioned the age gap, and she was pretty mad, lol. Now if you're like, oh, he doesn't seem too creepy, Exhibit B, my friends. These are other occurrences, before he asked me out. I was 17 during these. 1.
I can pick you up.
So, one day, my coworker G, 24, female, called me, and after some anxiety, I pick up. It's P using her phone because she had my number, and he says that he needs someone to help him in produce that day. My day off, by the way. Sorry, P, my mom has to drive me. I can ask her, but
I can come pick you up.
What? Heck no. I am not getting into a stranger's car. I also was already creeped out by this guy too. I'm glad I said no, lol. He had once asked out G, who was married and even smaller than me. So yeah, he had a type. 2. Produce training shift, because bakery and produce shared a prep room. When I had occasional bakery shifts, I also semi-worked with P. But one day, I worked with him directly as he had asked the manager to let him train me for it. Okay? Which was odd because I showed no interest in produce. Anyway, the shift was awkward and he tried touching me a lot to show me how to cut fruit. I left early. 3. Helping on register. Produce floor was right behind the registers, and I was on 5 or 6 a lot as a night shift cashier. So P would frequently talk to me on register and was sometimes put on one. And he always talked to me and some of the other underage girls. Since I left, he has found my new workplace, small town, and came in almost every week, gone through my register recently. So yeah, that's my short neckbeard story, lol. Sorry if it's not very interesting, ha ha ha. Alright guys, so if any of you heard that story and were like, yeah, this guy doesn't seem all that bad, as someone who spent over 10 years working in the grocery industry, I can attest that this is the kind of guy we didn't let be around the underage girls, and there were a lot of them, unfortunately. Unfortunately, people that are older working at grocery stores tend to be very emotionally immature, and they often think they found a kindred spirit in the teenage girls that work there, and will often hit on them, and usually they are like this guy, kind of fat, kind of creepy, and just have made a lot of bad choices in life. And as someone who got out of the grocery industry, I can say that I'm very happy that I did that, and I'm happy to be rid of the grocery lifers, as we called them. But yeah, no, this guy, I know the third one, he's just talking to people on register. That one I think is reaching a bit, but it's probably the way he talked to them. Okay, so let's get into number 2. This is a story titled Neckbeard Kisses My Hand at Work. This is about an experience I, 21 male, had at a temporary job with working at an event for Easter Bunny photos around half a year ago. I only remember it because I doodled some of the experience. One of the days I worked, I was in the costume dancing around while my coworkers chatted with some guy who had stopped by. I couldn't see him very clearly, nor could I hear much, but I did hear something about him joking about hunting the Easter Bunny since he hunted occasionally/often. I played it off like a joke because it sounded like one, by covering the bunny head's mouth to show surprise. 2 days later, I was dancing around out front while one of my coworkers was in the suit, and in comes a man who I think is Amish. He had a beard and no mustache. His outfit was a completely black suit with a blue tie and a black scorpion pin with a blue decorative gem on it. Well, that doesn't sound very Amish. He walked up and said something along the lines of, "You were the one in the Easter Bunny costume." After I expressed my confusion, he clarified he was the guy who joked about hunting the Easter Bunny. Oh, okay, that seemed rather normal for me at the moment. He was probably just chatty and recognized me by how I was dancing. We chatted a bit and I showed him some of my doodles. In turn, he began talking about how he was a beginner in tattoo art. He suggested giving me a tat himself after I mentioned being interested in them, which I thought was a joke. Cool, we were both into art. I let him give me his number on my paper since I didn't encounter many other artists around there, partially due to being only at home except for work. He had 3 numbers: his regular, his work, and an extra to build credit. It was a little weird now, but I was giving him the benefit of the doubt. I was pretty sure he couldn't be interested in me. We shook hands, and he ended up holding on to my hand after and bringing it to his lips to kiss the back of it, without asking first. Of note, my coworker mentioned he had a fedora on. I never noticed. Honestly, I should have guessed he was interested since a lot of people mistake me for a woman. I only recently started socializing more once I got myself to the point I was confident, so I was very inexperienced with social norms at that point. After the incident, I made sure to use sanitizer on my hand and throw away the part of the paper with his numbers on it. It gave me the heebie-jeebies for a day after that happened. My hand felt dirty no matter what I did, and to this day I don't really like handshakes. Not much else to say. It was a weird encounter, and I never saw him again since I don't work in that part of town anymore. OP, are you sure he thought you were a girl? I mean, neckbeards can be of any sexuality. Maybe he's into guys. I don't think necessarily the fact that you apparently have a somewhat feminine appearance, I don't know if he actually did mistake you for a girl. But either way, the hand kiss to a stranger is always creepy. At the time of recording this, yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, and we were having a discussion in the office about how, once upon a time, everyone was super cool with the unwanted touch of you get pinched if you're not wearing green, and how that really doesn't fly in this day and age. And I'm glad we've gotten to a point where, we need to ask people permission before we just put our hands on them. But apparently, neckbeards still haven't learned that. But, handshakes aren't so bad as long as they don't kiss it afterwards, OP. You'll get there. Alright guys, we got 2 more stories left. If you're enjoying this so far, please be sure to hit that like button and maybe leave a comment. Make sure that the YouTube algorithm knows that this channel is one worth suggesting to others. With that being said, let's go to number 3. Story number 3 is entitled, I Think My Uncle Was a Neckbeard. When I was a toddler, I thought he was just some overweight dad who plays video games. Found out he was my mom and aunt's brother. Met his kids, my cousins, throughout 2010. I saw his Darth Vader statue with a bikini on it, and was like, what the hell? What kind of humor is this? He told me he would put makeup on me and a crown to make me look like the princess characters from the Mario games, which I hope he was being silly, as I see his collection of games on Xbox and PlayStation. Next year, in 2011, staying with my cousins for my summer days, I just watch him laugh about diarrhea humor on YouTube. And then, in 2015 again, not much, he was a tattoo artist at the time, and we got excited for Terminator Genesis and Star Wars The Force Awakens. And in 2016, I heard he went to jail for months for trying to kill his ex-wife. Effing abuser, man. After years seeing my cousins again in 2019, where I see how influenced his kids were by seeing what the hell they watch on YouTube through his TV, it was weeaboo cringe compilation videos and go animate Calliu and Dora getting grounded. And on my grandparents' Apple computer, they were watching some Nicki Minaj Anaconda video edited with farting sounds as a parody, where I felt like throwing up, where I didn't find that humor funny at all. Gross. After a while, after my cousin Niv, a boy about 2 or 3 years younger than me, had a fight with his younger sisters in my effing room. And Derek, my uncle, asked his son if he'd like it if I did that to him and gave him time out in a bedroom that's not their room. Instead, it's my bedroom. Little side. The OP here, no idea who they are as their account was deleted. This is abhorrent grammar and spelling. I just want to make that clear. This is very hard to read. And after staying at his friend's house, my uncle got upset where he told his kids not to use his pocket knife, got upset for spilling a glass of drink on his computer, and then got mad over his daughter's running away, telling his daughter that the street natives will R all of us as kids, as his warning as a parent, and I saw my younger cousin, the girl, cry because he effing traumatized her. This was in 2019. Years later, after I had another uncle from across West Canada try to fight him. He doesn't talk to my family anymore after what I told him, and I knew now in the 2020s my aunt, my mom, my elders don't care about him anymore. They don't want to hear about him anymore, plus nobody did anything to help my cousins but allow my uncle to hold his kids hostage. My mom told me he's keeping them hostage by telling them nobody cares about them, trapping them in his house. What a pathetic excuse of a man. I really hope he dies alone when he's old with no friends, no new wives, no family, not even his own children around him. I'm glad I got that off my chest. Well, that is quite a rant, OP. Your sentence structure was terrible. and your spelling was atrocious, but at least you are able to identify that your uncle is a giant man-child who messed his kids up royally. So that's good, I suppose. And guys, we saved the best for last. This one is a bit longer than the others, so I figured we'd save it for the final story. Again, if you're enjoying this content, please click like, please click subscribe. Please help this channel grow as we are trying to meet certain goals so that this channel will continue past the end of this year. If you are new to the channel, we have creepypastas on Mondays, we have Reddit stories on Wednesdays, and Lost Media Fridays, and about 3 times a month there will be a member exclusive video on Sundays. So, that is the schedule, and we're sticking to it, and I really hope you enjoy this content. So let's get into that final story, which is titled Gaslighting in the Game Shop. And so we dig into my beer-laden past. One of the biggest beards was in my life, attached to me in my early 20s. I, 36 female now, was a weird one growing up. I had been playing D&D and computer games with my father since before my teens. During the time I commingled with the beard, Joe, male 40s or 50s possibly, I was living in a northwestern state and managed to find a game shop literal blocks away from my apartment. Here, I started walking over to play in the assorted night events like Adventure League, board game nights, Magic the Gathering Fridays, and the rare D&D game. It was a lot of fun, but the craving began to gnaw at me. I wanted a campaign that I could sink my teeth into and grow/develop a character. Enter Joe. I had of course seen him in the shop during assorted events. He was very hard to miss, corpulent and notably aromatic. He seemed like a really nice guy with unfortunate physical attributes. The beard itself was thick and untamed, and he always dresses on slop pants or shorts and a food-stained t-shirt that had holes and a musty odor. His personality was jovial, and he acted as a kind and generous person, and he took me in when it came to Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. In the beginning, things were great. I would walk down to the card store with my decks. I had 3 that I was playing around with at the time. For those with interest, one was a blue-green counters, another was a black-white angels, and the third was a green-white population deck. He would spend hours with me, going over the decks and tweaking my cards, teaching me how to get a realistic count of land versus cards. Y'all know the struggle can be real. As of this time, Joe acted as more of a mentor than anything to me. Things were awesome. I have almost no social acuity, so this was fantastic. It was the first time I had a social life in a couple years. I wish I had just left things there, enjoying the separation from Joe, and the game shop was there for me to visit. But I fluffed up. I accepted the invitation to go to his house for more in-depth Magic the Gathering lessons/trades and to help start a D&D 2nd edition game. Suddenly, I went from meeting Joe at defined intervals to being at his home for what seemed like every day. He has 2 daughters from 2 different relationships, and suddenly I was meeting them and their moms when the girls would be brought by for his time. We began D&D, and I started with a fun character named Widget Berry Slicer, the gnomish rogue. I learned very quickly that Joe was used to playing Iron Man, and he was a very punitive GM, and she was basically killed by the 2nd session because of a few rolls and a lot of GM decisions. Okay, cool. So I make a healer. Meet Clary Sage, the druid. She did not get murdered in the 2nd game. Phew. Alright, so now we have a weekly D&D game in addition to Magic the Gathering Friday and pre-release events, etc. My whole social life started to orbit around the game shop, and by extension, Joe. Things were going really well. We began to explore in the D&D world. Soon, Joe decided that he would start cooking dinner for D&D, and the players just needed to put in $5 to eat. This was a great deal at first, Slowly, Joe began to ask me to pick up stuff on the way to his house to cook for the dinner. Keep in mind, I still had to pay the $5 to eat it, after purchasing the ingredients. Okay, shitty, but Fast forward about month 4. I am now usually picking up ingredients on the way to his house, and he has me doing the cooking now, and loading up the car. We would carpool to the game shop. Not gonna lie, those trips were rough. The car was always dirty with food wrappers, and his personal body scent was so very thick. Once at the shop, I would be the one to unload the car and set him up throne style at the table, because that's what he had trained. Not sure that's the best word. I'd give him the $5 to eat, then set up the food I had purchased and cooked. We would play, and then I'd go back to his house, about a 30-minute drive, and unload the car before I drove back home, passing the game shop to get there. Some nights, he would have me stay the night. Joe had some pretty severe health issues that I won't go into because they are not mine to share. He would have me assist him with the medical stuff that he had difficulty with. It was unpleasant because of the odor and having to touch things. By this point, I'd conned myself into feeling that this was just normal, and he eased into taking more liberties with my person. Things were being pushed into very NSFW direction. I was very impressionable, in deep dislike of myself and major depressive disorder, diagnosed. For all intents and purposes, I was becoming a waifu. A few more months pass, and with meds, I'm finally starting to realize this was actually not okay. It took me a long time to work up the tiny bit of backbone I could muster and let him know I was starting to feel taken advantage of. Not only was I purchasing everything and doing the cooking, then paying him for the privilege of eating it, he informed me that it was not his fault about this and that I had started taking over the cooking, so he left it alone. He said he had to charge me so that the others in the group found it to be fair. I was told I was being high-strung and dramatic. I backed down. He must be right. He was older, wiser, and he had been so kind in offering his help on anything gaming related. So I backed down and apologized for being rude, and we maintained the status quo. Oof. I stayed in that situationship for almost another year. I did manage to ease away from the NSFW material, but I was still cooking and paying, making card trades for Magic the Gathering, watching the kids when they were over, etc. I finally escaped the neckbeard nest in 2012 and have grown a little emotionally. I'm still socially oblivious, but now my girlfriend, 36 female now, Wolfie, helps me to navigate those waves. I moved away and started fresh, still trying to nurture and grow a backbone, but so far I have not had much luck. Maybe I have a black thumb? Too long didn't read? Socially inept 20-something-year-old woman discovers a game shop and is chosen by a neckbeard, gets groomed and conditioned to support him, and gets gaslit constantly to become a gamer girl waifu. She moves across the country to escape. Neckbeards push her firmly into a lesbian relationship that has and will continue to be a nurturing and supportive one. Apologies, the usual. I'm not sorry about the length, but I am sorry if the formatting is wonky. I'm happy to share some specifics, but this is my very first neckbeard post and was not quite sure where to elaborate or condense. Have the day you deserve, everyone, and thank you for listening. Honestly, OP, I think you are just fine in how you write your story, especially considering the one we read before yours. Also, I am so sorry that happened to you. Again, the big thing we see with a lot of these neckbeard stories is that these, emotionally immature but highly manipulative people latch on to these socially oblivious, as the OP put it. It's the same reason that incels are obsessed with virgins, because if you try to go after someone who knows, who actually has some social awareness or previous experience, they're not going to fall for the neckbeard BS. You know, they'll have things to compare it to. They'll go, this is not an okay friendship. This is not an okay relationship. And they'll head for the hills. So they need people that are isolated, that are socially inexperienced, so that they can, manipulate them and go, no, this is totally normal. It's totally normal for you to do all this weird medical stuff for me. It's normal for you to pay me for the privilege of cooking and, going out of your way for me because I'm so great. This is how it works. You are the one beneath me, and therefore you do these things for your king, essentially. And it's a terrible transactional way to have friendships, relationships, whatever. I've said before on the channel that I am very nerdy, but I am not beardy, and it takes nothing. It's not even about respecting women. It's about respecting your fellow people, your fellow nerds, your fellow gamers, the people in your social bubble that you are. If they are going to be around you and they are showing you respect, then you owe it to them to give that same respect and not manipulate or take advantage of them. And unfortunately, that is just not the mentality that beards have. And I'm so happy that you got out of that. And, I will say, I don't think it's the neckbeards that turned you into a lesbian. I don't necessarily think that's a thing. Maybe. I don't know. I don't claim. But I feel like you already were, at the very least, bisexual. And, you just happened to mesh better with, you found your person. I don't think the neckbeard scared you gay, as they might say. So I think you've just become more comfortable with who you are, and that's an amazing thing, OP. I wish you well. And that's going to be our video today, guys. I do hope you enjoyed these stories. Some were a little better than others, but, we take what we get. If you have a great story that you would like to hear Mr. Sean, myself, narrate, please do share that on the subreddit, r/Mr. Sean Reads Stories. Please be sure to hit that like button. Hit subscribe so you never miss one. Click the bell so you always get an update. And please consider joining the $1 tier to gain access to all of my member-exclusive videos. You can do that either here on YouTube or over on Patreon, links to which are in the description. Also, if you are a nerdy tabletop gamer, be sure to check out my wide range of both kit-bashed custom miniatures and not safe for work repaints, if that's more your thing. They're available on Mercari and eBay. Again, links are in the description. So until next time, everybody, I'm Mr. Sean. This is Mr. Sean Productions, and I sincerely hope that you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.